Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Myself Siraj-u-din Mir, a faculty member at AIIMS Secondary School, Handwara. I am your physics teacher, and today in this video, I am going to teach class 8th. So, in class 8th, I have chosen a chapter for you, which is a very important chapter, that's force and pressure. It's from the physics portion, so we will study force and pressure in this video. And firstly, we'll be discussing about the four chapters in four subtopics in this series of videos. Firstly, we will introduce. I will introduce you about the force, and then I'll be talking about the effects of force, and then I'll be talking about the friction, and finally I'll be taking up the pressure and the relation between force and pressure. So let's start our introduction about the force. A force is simply push or a pull or both, sometimes both. A force cannot be seen, but we can feel and observe the effects of the force. Okay. Force is simply what we call push or a pull, or sometimes it can be both. A force cannot be seen, but we can feel and observe the effects of the force. Its effects can be observed, or we can feel the force, but it cannot be seen. Okay. So the question here is, what is push? A push is when we apply a force in such a way on an object that that object gets away from our bodies, or that object gets away from your body. That's called push. Okay. Secondly, pull. When you apply if a force on any object or anything in such a way that that object moves towards our body. If that object moves towards our body, that force we call pull. And a push is that force when we apply a force in such a way that object gets away from our body. That will be called a push. And sometimes the force is both combination of pull and push. So let me give an example here. As you can see here, a man is pressing the switch. This is a push. Okay, this is a push. Here, this football player is kicking a ball. This is also a push, because this ball gets away from the body of the player. Okay. And here, as you can see, this rocket is going upwards. So it's a push. It's a push because it gets away from the applied force, or we can say from this ground. And the lady is pushing this trolley, because this trolley gets away from her body. And here man is knocking a nail, which is actually a push. He is pushing the nail. And let me give an example of pulling. Here, as you can see, the men are trying to pull this rope. Okay, they're trying to pull this rope, and by doing so, they are trying to bring that rope towards their bodies. Okay, towards their body. And here, as you can see, the boy is pulling this bow. As you can see, the bow gets towards his body, so it's a pull. And here, this little guy, he is pulling this rope towards his body, so that he can lift this. He can lift this flag up. So he is pulling this. He is pulling this rope. And here, a man is trying to pull a box. he is pulling the box and he is bringing this box along with him. Okay, and here's another example. A man is trying to pull the door to open it. So these were the examples of pull. And here let me give an example of both pull and push. Here, as you can see, the man which is playing guitar, and in doing so, he is sometimes pushing these strings downwards or sometimes pulling these strings upwards. So in this way, he is doing both pushing and pulling. And here a man is sawing wood, and by doing so, he is sometimes pulling that, okay, pushing that, and sometimes pulling it. And here, as you can see, the lady is scrubbing the floor, and in doing so, he is sometimes pulling it, sometimes pushing it, so he can perform his work. And here, a man is rowing a boat. He is rowing a boat, and in doing so, he is sometimes pushing this away from his body, sometimes pushing this away from his body, and sometimes pulling it. These were the examples of both push and pull. So we can conclude that force is a push or a pull, or sometimes both. Let's move forward. Let's talk about the effects of force. The force can change the shape of an object sometimes. Okay? It can change the shape of the object, either temporarily, or it can change the shape of the object permanently. Okay, and the third one, change the direction of a moving object. It can change the direction of a moving object. If object is moving in one direction, it can change its direction. Okay, it can change its direction. And fourth, change the speed of a moving object. It can change the speed of a moving object also. If, for example, an object is moving here with one speed, and if force is applied here, and if the object is moving in this direction, and if force is applied in the same direction, it will be accelerated. It will change its speed. Okay. And finally, it can stop a moving object. Or make a stationary object move. For example, if this body is moving, it's moving in this direction. If the force is applied in the opposite direction, it would stop. Okay, it would stop if the force is equal or greater. And thirdly, it can move the stationary objects. If the object is stationary here, if we apply the force in any other direction, this will move. Okay, this will move if we apply a force. So let's discuss these effects. I will give an example here. I have an examples here. Here you can see the temporary change. Okay, these are all are temporary changes. For example, here's a change, and this is a rubber. Okay, it's in the original shape, and when we stretch the rubber, it gets changed. Its shape gets changed temporarily. This is temporary change. Okay, it's not a permanent change. If we lift this force, and it will maintain its original shape after lifting the force. So this is a temporary change. And as you can see here, it's a sponge, and if we apply a force here, it gets changed temporarily. It's not a permanent change. If we lift that force up, it will have its original shape after lifting the force. And here, as you can see, is a string. It's in the original shape first, and the man is pushing this string, and it gets changed temporarily. It's a temporary change. Okay, if we lift this force, it will maintain its original shape after lifting the force. So these are temporary changes. So a force can change the shape of an object temporarily, or it can change the shape permanently. Here are the examples of permanent change. As you can see here, if you take a glass, it's a glass, and if you drop it, its change will be permanent. You cannot bring these piece of glasses into this original shape. It's not possible. So this is a permanent change. So this is a permanent change. Here, lady is tearing this paper. Lady is tearing this paper, so you cannot change this paper into the original shape after tearing it. And here's a empty can. It's an empty can, and if you press this empty can, both sides, it will deform in the shape. Okay, it will get deformed in the shape. Therefore, you can say this is a permanent change. You cannot bring this can into the original shape. You have to recycle it. Then you cannot bring it by yourself in this shape. So you can say this is a permanent change. Let's move forward. Here's a misconception among the students. Sometimes the students think that solid is incompressible. Okay, they think that solid is incompressible, but this is wrong. It's a misconception. Solid can be compressed. Okay, solid can be compressed as you have seen here. It can be compressed. It's a solid. We have compressed it. So solid can be compressed. What is the misconception? The misconception is that a solid cannot be compressed. A solid cannot be compressed or stretched. Okay, here's the explanation. The shape of a solid object changes when a force is applied to it, whether it is temporary or permanently. Example, crushing a can change the shape. Okay, as you have seen there. So we can change the shape of a solid.